Nile crocodiles, by the hundreds, plunge into the safe haven of Lake Urema at the first sight of humans. There, they can stay underwater for hours, a talent that no doubt helped them evade the guns of hungry soldiers. And here, they can satiate their hunger by hunting their main prey, catfish. The crocs, by eating the voracious catfish, are actually a blessing for the park. In other places, where crocs have been killed off, catfish have multiplied out of control and destroyed entire ecosystems. Other fish populations crash. The birds that feed on them follow. The bird droppings that fertilize the water disappear. Gorongosa's crocs keep this environmental death spiral from occurring. The other great keepers of the lake, hippos, are still too few to help restore the park to its former greatness. They too will have to be imported from South Africa. But for now, the Gorongosa team has elephants on its mind. They've arrived at South Africa's Kruger National Park. Unlike Gorongosa, which has too few elephants, Kruger has too many. The population has risen from 8,000 to 13,000 in just 13 years. The chase begins. The target, male elephants. Bulls are loners, except when mating. Females are so tied to their families, they wouldn't survive among strangers. Now, the ground team waits for the immobilizing drug to take effect. He's a big bull in his prime, and he's taking a long time to fall. 12 minutes and counting. After 20 minutes, the ground team rushes in. The elephant has fallen to his knees. In this position, with all his weight on his lungs, he could suffocate. On his side, the elephant is safe. But the capture team must still work quickly. The longer he is immobilized, the greater the risk of fatal complications. A drugged elephant's trunk becomes flaccid. To prevent suffocation, they make sure to keep it open. He's huge, over 3 meters at the shoulder. Each tusk is well over 1 meter long. He's about 40 years old and probably weighs about 6,500 kilograms. Elephants regularly live to be 60 years old. The capture team bolts on a satellite tracking collar. This will allow them to keep a virtual eye on the elephant in Gorongosa. The collar's code is G5, and this becomes the elephant's new name. G5 receives the antidote to the immobilizing drug.
We're just giving the antidote, getting his eye open, and we're ready to go.
They need to get him back on his feet for the long trip to Gorongosa. Otherwise, he could be injured under his own weight.
Put in your legs, come on. Put in those legs, come now, now. Now.
Okay.
Bye.
Carlos must give G5 a tranquilizer to minimize the stress of travel and to prevent any elephant rage on the journey. In all, the Gorongosa team captures 6 bull elephants in Kruger. It's been a long day. They're exhausted and anxious about what the future holds. Ahead lies one of the longest overland journeys ever undertaken to relocate elephants. They and their precious cargo will have to journey 1,300 kilometers from South Africa across the border into Mozambique. As the caravan sets off into the African night, Gorongosa's grand plan seems impossibly audacious for now. While Gorongosa awaits its new elephants, the dry season sets in. The rivers evaporate in the blistering heat. For the crocs, the great survivors, this may mean some additions to the menu. Warthogs and baboons have overrun the park in the absence of large numbers of lions and other big predators. With water at a premium, they are drawn to the shrinking shores, now thick with crocs, hidden beneath the water cabbage. As warthog hunters, crocs are no substitute for the big cats. They still do their part by keeping the catfish population down. Catching a catfish is one thing. Keeping it is another. When not hunting, crocs of all sizes haul out to bask. There's a pecking order here, and a monstrous specimen ponderously takes a prime spot. They show off their impressive teeth, but generally tolerate each other. On shrinking rivers off the lake, tempers flare. It's time for the females to lay their eggs, and competition for prime nesting sites intensifies. Once they lay, the females will stand guard for over 2 months and wait for the hatchlings to emerge, the next generation of unlikely keepers of the lake. For Gorongosa's human keepers, excitement mounts. The delivery they've been waiting for has finally arrived. 30 hours after setting off, the trucks bearing the Kruger elephants pull into the park.
Come to my side.
Only 1 hour and how long? 2 days?
American entrepreneur Greg Carr welcomes the team.
Good to see ya. Congratulations, we made it.
Through his nonprofit foundation, Carr has committed to help fund and manage the restoration of Gorongosa for 20 years. Where others saw a hopeless situation in Gorongosa, Carr saw an opportunity. He grew up near Yellowstone National Park in the United States, an Eden once as devastated as this one.
What most people don't realize is that when Yellowstone was made a national park in the late 19th century, that at that time the animals were depleted. They had been hunted out. And Yellowstone was not the magnificent place it is now with abundant wildlife.
The lessons learned from Yellowstone helped form the model here. Build up the herbivore base through reintroduction and vigorous protection from poaching, and then bring back predators. A groggy G5 steps out into a new world.
Hello, boy.
Carro.
Olha para isso.
Estão a ver? Aquilo que eu estou a dizer. Não há problema, não há problema. Não querem ouvir, pá. Tá bom, tá bom. Tá bom. Time is going.
G5 must learn to navigate a completely different landscape. He begins to explore and taste his new home. G5 and the other bulls are the special forces of conservation here. First on the ground, they can clear out enormous swaths of trees and bush, re-landscaping Gorongosa's vast savannas, setting the stage for thousands of other animals to flourish. As the new elephants begin to explore Gorongosa, the hopes and worries of the conservation team go with them. One of their gravest concerns is that the elephants will leave the park, which is not fenced like the park they've come from. To the south, only a shallow river separates the elephants from farms and villages. As Carlos and his team patrol the river for stray elephants, they also keep an eye out for rogue crocodiles. Every year, a handful of people disappear from these banks, and the villagers demand that the crocs be culled. For now, humans have nothing to fear from these crocs. Vigilant mothers stand guard. Gorongosa's sandy riverbanks provide perfect nesting spots. This croc has probably used this site all her life. From the cool of the river, she watches for nest raiders. A Nile monitor lizard hunts. Its darting tongue tastes the air, seeking the scent of croc eggs buried beneath the sand. The lizard gets too close for comfort, and she switches to battle stations. He sniffs out her nest and starts digging. Undaunted, the lizard searches for another nest. Soon it finds one, unguarded. More than half of all croc eggs are sometimes lost, many down the throats of these crafty predators. Too late, the mother arrives and finds her hopes dashed. Dry season tightens its grip on Gorongosa. The rivers drop to just a few inches. Small fish rocket from the water, pursued by ravenous catfish. Their acrobatic escape acts buys them a little time. But their bell tolls when the skies darken above them. Thousands of storks, cranes, and pelicans arrive for the annual feast. Each uses different techniques for the job. Some stab and impale. Some trawl. Some hunt in packs. Despite the easy pickings, they squabble endlessly. Of all the fishing techniques on display, none is more impressive than the aerial ambush of the African fish eagle. Two rivals tangle talons mid-air. The victor wins fishing rights to a banquet. Within days, the shrinking river will be fished clean, and the birds will move on. Those who can't flee resort to digging in. Crocs entomb themselves in mud and go into a kind of suspended animation in a last-ditch effort to survive the drought. Catfish dig in too. On the horizon looms the worst sign of all: smoke. Every year, bushfires take a heavy toll on the park's wildlife. But this year, they will bring more heartbreak than usual. Without its big grazers to eat the grass, the park is like a tinderbox. Wildfires rage out of control. Ranger Justino Devane and his team are on 24-hour alert. Against such a tenacious enemy, they face a seemingly impossible task. The team defeats this bushfire, but they know it's only a matter of hours before they are called into action again. Frightened by the fires, an elephant flees the park. It's G5, the huge 40-year-old bull recently trucked in from South Africa.
When the fires got really serious, then in one day he moved 20 kilometers south. It's clear that he was running from the fires.
G5's life and those of villagers in his path is now in danger. Here, as in most places across Africa, the collision of people and elephants can bring tragic results. The Gorongosa team needs to find G5 as soon as possible and somehow get him back. Elephants can cover more than 80 kilometers in a day. Every hour brings G5 further away from the safety of Gorongosa and closer to a potentially violent end. The team finally locates G5. Villagers are frightened by the giant in their midst, and local officials say they'll shoot the elephant unless he's removed. G5's survival depends on bringing him back to the park. The Gorongosa team has no choice. They immobilize G5, despite the risks. After 10 days on the run, he is probably exhausted and stressed to the breaking point. The drugs could kill him. They try to keep him cool. Immobilization can hinder an elephant's ability to regulate its body temperature. The journey home starts out well. But after 2 hours on the road, there's a problem. G5's breathing becomes labored. It may be heat stroke. It may be that the elephant is just too weak or stressed to tolerate the drugs. Whatever the reason, it's clear he's slipping away. It was a risk they had to take. But now, one of their hard-won immigrants is dead. The rescue operation becomes a funeral procession. Back at the park, rangers remove G5's tusks to deter ivory poachers from trying to find his grave. receives a final salute. Despite the tragedy, Carlos Lopes Pereira still believes that humans and elephants can live together around Gorongosa. For Carlos and his team, there's no time for grief. Already, plans are underway to bring Gorongosa's next vital immigrants. Hippos. And desperately needed relief from the drought is on the horizon. One stifling afternoon in late December, the skies begin to brood. Finally, the rains arrive. The crocs emerge from their shallow graves. The wet season will last for 4 months, drowning Gorongosa. Refreshed by the rains, Gorongosa feels like a living Eden again. At the nesting beach, the rains trigger the arrival of a new generation of Gorongosa's top predator. From inside their eggs, beneath the sandy riverbank, the croc hatchlings call to their mother. She has guarded them round the clock for over 2 months. Now, it's time to dig them up. About 40 eggs make up her clutch. Using a tiny egg tooth at the tip of its snout, each hatchling breaks through. Some need a little help. She gently rolls unbroken eggs between her tongue and the roof of her mouth to crack them and release the hatchlings. A special pouch in the bottom of her mouth allows her to hold half a dozen. She brings each new batch to the water. With the briefest of baptisms, their eternal bond to the river is forged. Their fate and the fate of Gorongosa is now inseparable. Soon, the hatchlings will be fierce little predators, hungrily snatching up bugs. But danger is everywhere. Insatiable catfish pursue them from beneath. Birds try to pick them off from above. Their mother will guard them for a few weeks. Even with her protection, chances are only one or two of this clutch will survive to maturity. But it will be enough. Crocs are not the only babies making their debut in the park. Trucks rumble into Gorongosa carrying very unusual cargo. It's a hippo family, youngster included. These animals are notoriously difficult to capture and relocate, but they are as important to the health of the park as elephants. Their pathways to grazing lawns create channels, allowing Gorongosa's lifeblood to flow from Lake Urima to other areas of the park. They deposit valuable nutrients in the water, nutrients that feed the fish and in turn feed the crocodiles. Once, Gorongosa boasted a huge population of over 3,500 hippos, but the war reduced them to 100. Carlos Lopes Pereira wants to get their numbers back up to at least 500. After successfully completing one of the longest overland elephant relocations, the Gorongosa team now boasts one of the longest overland hippo relocations. Hippos are one of the most dangerous animal species in Africa, and releasing them around people is risky.
Hippos are unpredictable animals. We don't have guarantees that they will go to the water.
The release team erects a corral to guide the new arrivals down to the river, away from the onlookers behind.
Hamba, 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 hamba. Hey, that's perfect. Look at this.
Carlos gets more than he bargained for.
Yeah, she's pregnant. Yeah, she has a baby and she's pregnant. So it'll be the first baby born in Gorongosa.
With new groups of hippos and elephants, the seeds of Gorongosa's restoration are planted. And in some corners of the park, you can see the heart of ancient Gorongosa starting to beat again as the herds begin to multiply. But large swaths of Gorongosa still remain a staggeringly beautiful but empty stage, awaiting the return of its other star actors. Now, with the reintroduction and vigorous protection of herds of herbivores, the great prey icons of Africa finally make their comebacks in Gorongosa. And one great predator can be seen keeping them in its sights. Gorongosa's lions may be out of practice, but hunting big prey is in their blood. There are around 30 lions in the park today, well above the number since the end of the war. With their prey now multiplying, the lions appear to be doing the same. With the return of predators, Gorongosa begins to feel whole again. But its future depends on the well-being of one final species, the humans. Each morning, villagers pole across the Pungwe River to get to their jobs in the park. Some who might otherwise be hungry and forced to hunt Gorongosa's wild animals. For Greg Carr, securing Gorongosa's future means not just saving animals, but also helping people. In the park's recovery plan, improving people's lives is critical to success. So schools and health clinics have gone up, sustainable agriculture brought in, and now a factory to process and distribute locally grown fruit is giving employment to local workers and income to farmers.
That's the dream, that we can achieve human development and biodiversity protection at the same time. But I can tell you that there's real work involved.
For Carlos Lopes Pereira, the stakes for this war-wounded country couldn't be higher.
The fate of the people of this region, of this district, of this country, is tied to the fate of this park. If we lose this park, we will not only lose a beautiful place, I think the people will lose their soul.
Gorongosa, once one of the most popular parks in the world, could once again become an engine of prosperity for a struggling nation. Each new generation of creatures here carries with it not only the hopes of the park's keepers and the people of Mozambique, but also conservationists facing long odds to save damaged ecosystems around the world. Because if this lost Eden can once again be called the place where Noah left his ark, perhaps no wild space is beyond hope.